I am the one hitter quitter. Just so you know. Very proud that seldomly I have to take more than one take. Hey guys, welcome to My Dyslexic Life. And my name is Chacho Taylor, and My Dyslexic Life is my story about growing up dyslexic, but really my story about growing up and how I grew up, which hopefully is interesting to you guys. I think it's amazing. I mean, I have been so blessed to have the life that I've had. I really have. Like, when I think about it, and I think about the blessings that I have had to have, even some of the misfortune that I've had and that I've been able to get through, right? And how that changed me and what that did for me. Man, how fortunate. This has made me the person I am today. You know, that's the thing. Like, if you've gone through life and you've made mistakes or things have gone wrong or you've had challenges, whatever it is, like, don't hate those times, man. If you've learned from those things, those are the things that have made you who you are today. That has made you the person you are. It's shaped you, right? And the hard times, and that has shaped you. Now, the good things, they all have part that takes part too. But we all love the good things. Sometimes we shame ourselves. Sometimes we beat on ourselves. Sometimes we're not loving to ourselves because of these hard things, because of these mistakes we made or decisions that we made. Maybe we should have made a different decision or done something differently. Maybe you should have. Absolutely. And there's a lot of things I should have done differently. But I didn't. I did what I did. And then something happened. And usually that something wasn't a good thing. And then I changed. Then things changed. I learned. Usually I learned. I have been blessed with the ability to learn, right? And so when I learned, I changed. And things went better. Right, from then on, and then there's a new problem. That's life. That's how we go. That's how we hit it. So, My Dyslexic Life, please, please, please continue to watch. Please continue to be a part of this. Please subscribe, and that's my invitation. I'm inviting you personally to subscribe. Right, leave a comment, talk to me. Let's get into this. If there's anything I can help with, if you have questions, thoughts, if you want to tell me you think I was wrong or that decision I made was stupid and don't love it because you probably should have never made it, cool, man. I want to hear it. I want to hear it all. But yeah, this is My Dyslexic Life, and it's about my dyslexic life. And this story is kind of cool because this was the day that we figured out I was dyslexic, right? So I'm gonna take it back and tell that story, right? Which is an interesting story. So I lived on and off with my grandparents and my mom and dad, and I did that for a while. And so when it came time for me to go to school, my grandmother kind of took charge and figured out where I was going to go to school, and it was a school called the Montessori School. Very creative name, being that it was a Montessori school. Now, this school we lived in Pojoaque. She had her restaurant in Santa Fe. This school was between Pojoaque and Santa Fe, so she chose a school that would make it easy for her to get me to school, being that she figured the only way I was going to get to school is if she got me there, right? My parents, sometimes they had a car, sometimes they didn't. Things were broken down. Their priorities were a little different at that point. They were both drug addicts, extremely violent lifestyles. So she's just kind of like, all right, let me see what I can do, how I can step in. And so she was helping them raise me. And that's what she did, right? She didn't let things fall through the cracks. So that being said, she put me in the Montessori school. Now, I knew from a very early age that I did not like school. I was not good at it, right? I mean, like, kids were learning their ABCs. I couldn't learn the ABCs, not until we started singing them. And then I could remember the song, but I couldn't write them down, right? Which is really interesting thing, right? Like, I can remember the song, I could sing the ABCs, but I couldn't write them down. He's young. We'll keep working with him. We'll keep figuring it out. As time went by in that school year, everybody was learning how to write their name, right? I would just do a cool little drawing. So every time they say write my name somewhere, I'd just do a little drawing. Draw a little mouse, draw a puppy, draw a ball, draw a square, whatever I could think of, a tree if I could. My teacher would say, that's not your name. You got to write your name. And then she'd do it for me. And then they'd get this piece of paper and I'd have to trace my name 1,000,000 times. And then I'd try to write it myself. And then I could do a good job. And then I'd get back to it and I couldn't remember how to write my name. Couldn't do it. All the kids in class were writing their name. They were doing great, writing their name. Remember the ABCs. They could write their ABCs. They were starting to write other words. I still couldn't write my name. My grandfather would get frustrated. He'd say, okay, you're going to learn how to write your name. I said, yeah, of course. Let's do this. All right. He'd write down a paper and say, write your name. And then I would not remember, so I'd draw a picture. He get so frustrated. He'd go, oh, that's not your name. So he'd write it. Say, trace it over and over and over again. Until you learn how to write your name, you're going to trace your name over and over. And it was exhausting. I didn't want to do it. I was so bad at it. Oh, you're just lazy. That's something that's very common with dyslexic people. We get called lazy very soon in life. That label is placed on us. If you have a dyslexic child, if you are dyslexic, don't accept that. Don't accept being called lazy, and please don't call your child lazy. That's not what it is. It is really that difficult. I know if you're not dyslexic, those things come easy. Writing your name, learning the ABCs, right? At that point in life, 5, 6 years old, why not? It's an easy thing. Not if you're dyslexic. And being called lazy, it starts to set in. Am I lazy? I'm a lazy person? That's not good. Does that mean I'm not good? I'm going to show them I'm not lazy. Or, you know what? Screw you, I'm lazy. These aren't things we want our kids to think about themselves. Hito, you're just being lazy. You won't even try. Oh, wait, I don't try. Do I try? But I am trying. So is this trying? It's very difficult to deal with those things. And it's difficult to take them in, especially when you are trying. But someone you trust and love is telling you you're not because they think you're not. So we went on and on and on with this. And that whole school year went by, and that's pretty much what I was doing. And, you know, I didn't really learn anything. It was a hard school year. It was a hard school year. I was just, you know, it's kindergarten. It was kindergarten. It was a hard school year. And, you know, like everything else was still going on in my life, right? Like everything else was still going on. I was starting to sing a lot at that point. So I was doing my thing with that, and I was good at that. I'd perform with my grandfather a little. We'll talk about that more, but I was doing that, and then, you know, I was living life, but my parents were still a mess. You know, I remember one day I'm at school, and school ends, and everybody goes home, and I'm still there. So they had me in the back. They had a teeter-totter there, some other things that I liked, and I start to play a little bit. I look up, and my dad walks up. He was going to pick me up that day. I didn't know it. But I guess my grandmother was busy or something, so my dad was going to pick me up. So I look, and I'm excited. I'm like, Dad. So I run over, and he says, hold on. Don't jump on me. I'm like, what's going on? He says, he thought I got shot today. I'm like, wait, what? I said, yeah, I got shot. So he pulls up his sleeve, and sure enough, he had a hole in his arm. He had been shot by a .22. My dad, when he did work, was a plasterer, and he was plastering up on some scaffolds, and somebody tried to snipe him out and shot him, and he got shot in the arm, and then he quickly climbed down and was able to escape without being killed. And then he had to pick up his son from school. So he went to the hospital. The bullet had gone in and out, went right through. He was fine. Just a flesh wound, like they say in the movies. And so then from there, he bounced and came and picked me up from school. And so life was complex already. And on top of that, I couldn't write my name. And I definitely couldn't write down the ABCs. And people were starting to write paragraphs. My grandfather would say, you need to be able to write a story. And I'd draw a picture. I say, here's my story. And he'd say, that's not a story, that's a picture. But that's how I told my story. So I ended up finishing the entire school year there, my whole kindergarten year. And I was already setting into me that I maybe wasn't very smart, right? Like, I was already starting to get like, oh, all these kids are smarter than me. And I was starting to perform music on stages. It was kind of interesting, right? With my grandfather. And this was this time, and I thought I wasn't smart. But I was performing music in another language, by the way, in Spanish. And so we got through that summer, and it was time for the next school year, first grade, right? I didn't flunk kindergarten. I don't know if anyone can, but I didn't. So it was now time for first grade. So my grandmother put me in a school that was closer to a restaurant that was on Agua Fria Road. It was just a regular public school called Alvord. And so she said, all right, that Montessori thing's not working for him, obviously. Let's go ahead and move him to regular school, and that way he can just learn. So now I'm behind, and I'm in first grade, and it's all happening just at a faster pace, and I'm in class, and I can't keep up. They're writing things. Just everything is wrong. I'm not doing well in school. And I'm already starting to get teased by the kids a little bit because I'm not keeping up with them. It's evident. It's just, I already hated school. I was the first guy. I hated school. That set into me so early. Like, this is just not for me, right? So we have this big meeting. And when we have the big meeting, teachers come, counselor came, my grandparents are there, just my grandmother actually. Parents didn't show up. And so we're there, and we're in this, and they said, look, we want to test him for learning disabilities. She says, well, like, the kid is singing, performing, starting to travel, doing different things. He obviously doesn't have any learning issues. And they said, well, we feel like he might. So we want to test him because that's what we do, right? At this point, if he's struggling this hard, we need to figure out if there's a reason why, which that's a very responsible thing to do. So they do. They run me through this test, and I sit down with this lady, right? And she's a counselor, someone I've never met, a tester of some sort. She has this book, and the book is like an A-frame, and it folds over, right? And so when she's looking at her end, she sees something, and when I'm looking at my end, I see something. And when she flips the page, the backside of her page is now hidden, and I see my page, so I don't see what she saw, and now she sees another page that refers to what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at all that, and I'm thinking of that, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool book. I'm enjoying that. And so she's flipping these, and we're doing this whole test. And the test is like 3 hours, maybe longer, maybe a little shorter, but it felt like 6, right? Going through this test, one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. Finally, say, all right. And I said, well, did I pass the test? They said, oh, this isn't a test that you pass or fail. We're going to get the information. We'll talk to you later. So it seemed like forever went by. It probably wasn't. But in my head, I basically forgot about the test, right? We have another meeting. So they pull us into the meeting, and they say, look, we have some results. We want to talk. Should we do it in private? Do you want him to stay? My grandmother said, no, he can stay. So they were going to talk about it in private and then let me know, but she said, no, he can stay. So I said, all right. So I sat there, and so I'm there, and they say he's dyslexic. He has a learning disability. Now, I'm like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, right? Like, there's really something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? He's dyslexic. And so I think that the counselor saw that I panicked a little bit, like the expression that I might have made, and my grandmother might have too. And so I said, okay, guys, here's the deal, is that he also has a genius IQ. So he's dyslexic, but has a genius IQ. My grandmother said, well, how does that work? He said, well, most dyslexic people have very high IQs. It's actually part of the test. If you don't have a high IQ, you cannot be dyslexic. That's what they told her. And so they began to talk about it. And so he said, all right. She said, okay, well, they explained that's why he's having issues learning how to read. He can't recognize numbers. He's writing numbers backwards, letters backwards, reading things backwards. At that point, what they explained was with dyslexia, you see letters backwards. But that's weird. I don't think I see them backwards, but then how would I know? I'm the one seeing them, and they might be backwards. So we left, and my grandmother says, I don't want you to feel bad about yourself, this and that. You have this very smart IQ. You do these things. And so then she has this conversation with them, and they say, well, she said, well, what are you going to do? And they say, well, we want to put him in special education. And she said, what does that mean? So, well, we want to put him in the special ed class. She said, well, who else is in those classes? Like, what is that? And she said, well, we have kids with Down syndrome in there, and, just some other behavioral, all these different things. She said, well, look, he definitely is not as severe as far as a learning disability or disabled or a disability in general of having Down syndrome. And he doesn't have any behavioral issues. Why would you put him at that level of class? Like, how is he going to learn? How is he going to grow? What is that going to do for him? And they said, well, we don't have any other options. So it's that or regular class. And he's not cutting it in regular class. And she said, I can't accept that. That's not going to work. That's no educational value for him in your special ed classroom at that level, right? I know things have changed. There's different things now. Some for the worse, some for the best, right? But whatever it is, things have changed. But then those were the options. So my grandmother said, absolutely not. I said, well, we can do a resource room that he can go to a few hours a week. And then, I don't know what to tell you. And she said, all right, put him in that resource room and hopefully that'll help. And then she went and hired a reading specialist. So at that point, in first grade, I was already going to school all day. I would meet with my reading specialist 2 to 3 times a week. And I was already singing. And I'll tell you that story and how that happened. And I actually became a professional performer, but I was already starting to do that. So I was either in a studio or practice almost every day. So I was in the first grade and my schedule was packed with the things that I needed to do to get through my day. And that's how I started life, man. That's what I was doing, right? We had discovered I was dyslexic. So my grandmother made adjustments and was trying to do the best she could to get me through it, right? And yeah, man, like there were bullies and then there were not. And I was a nice kid, so I dealt with that, and there was a day I went out onto the playground and I didn't have any friends at that point. Like I really didn't. I was new to the school. I wasn't really the cool kid. And on top of that, I'm dyslexic and suck at school. Plus I hate school. So you put all that together, like I didn't really play sports. Nobody had taught me how to play any sports. So it's not like I was like trying out for the basketball team or anything like that. Plus I was only a first grader. So I don't even know if that was possible. So I'll go to spend my time on my playground by myself at that time. And that's just kind of how life was. And as I'm walking out, something hits me and I turn and it's a juice box. I look down and there's this guy and he's a 6th grader and I'm a first grader. I'm looking at him and he's standing by this girl and I think he was showing off. And I'm like, but he's laughing because it was just funny. So I'm like, oh, he's not a scary guy. It's just a joke, right? So he's joking with me. So I'm like, cool, all right. Well, if he can joke, I can joke, I'm thinking to myself. And plus, that girl's there, and I'm not going to just get hit by a juice box and not do anything about it. Even at the first grade, I knew that I could have more self-pride than that, more self-esteem. Like, I wasn't just going to let that happen. So I pick up the juice box myself, and I throw it right back, and it hits him, and it didn't open. and it falls. And he laughs some more and he says, "Hey, come here real quick." And I'm like, "All right, cool." Like, hey, maybe this is a friend. Maybe that's how you make friends. You throw stuff at each other. I don't know. I'm in first grade. What do I know? Plus that girl standing there, and I don't think this dude's really gonna like do anything bad. You know, I don't know. I thought I was safe. So I walk up, pop, drops me. No warning. I open my eyes and all the kids are looking at me. All I can see is little kids' heads looking at me. I open my eyes and they're like, "Are you okay?" And behind them is the sky. Not this guy, but the sky. So blue sky, heads, I'm laying down. I pop up quick. I see him. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to hit him back. And I was going to hit him back. I knew I was going to do it. And I start to step, and then I look over and I see a teacher, and I'm like, nope. And I walk over there and I say, he just hit me right in the face. So I was first grade, and I ratted on this dude. And then we went to the office, and they called my grandmother and his mom, and it was this huge thing. But the cool thing is when I got out of the office, I made my first friend because this dude, Alfredo, who also didn't have a ton of friends, he had actually lost one of his eyes. He had a glass eye. And the kids would tease him, call him Moco Eye all the time, which I thought was kind of messed up anyways. But he was like, "Hey, bro, you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And so I started a friendship. And that was one of my first friendships. In first grade, it started because I got hit in the face by this dude. And yeah, man, I was dyslexic. That was the word, right? Dyslexic. I had no idea what that meant. But my grandmother was like, "No, you're not lazy. You're not dumb. You're just dyslexic." It's kind of interesting, right? You're not lazy. You're not dumb. You're just dyslexic. So everybody thinks you're lazy and dumb. Wow. It was going to be a long, long road. But she didn't veer. She did not weaken. She stuck with me, man. She believed in me. She really did. And I could not have done like everything I've done in my life without her. It just wouldn't have happened. Just would not have happened. Life was rough, man. My parents were rough. Parents were rough. And even then, I was like, man, I knew I was going to get the call that one of them had died in an accident or something had happened. I loved them still. My little brother had been born, and now that was stressful because I had to worry about him, and he was going back and forth between my grandparents and my mom and dad. Whenever he was with them, I was stressed out, and he was just a baby, going through that kind of thing. And now I'm dyslexic all of a sudden, so I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Like, I'm dyslexic, nice. I don't know what that means. And I was singing, so my time was taken up, and that was cool, but at the same time, I didn't know how cool it was, and I didn't even tell anyone about it. Like, to me, I'm like, dude, whatever, man. Like, it's just something to do, I guess. I don't know what it was, but I can remember, like, it was already stressful. I was in the first grade. Life was already stressful. That was the start, man. I knew at that point, first grade. Had a long way to go. Had a long, long way to go, man. And it didn't matter. Like, my mom, my uncle, even though they knew it, they said, "Oh, that's just an excuse. Him being dyslexic, that's just an excuse. There's nothing wrong with him. That's just an excuse. He's just lazy." Like, they stuck to the lazy. Like, he's just lazy. I wasn't lazy. I just told you everything I was doing. School, tutoring, singing practices. Like, my life was busy, and I was in the first grade, and they're telling me I'm lazy. And the funny thing is, I believed them. I was just a lazy person. Anyways, man, my dyslexic life. It's the story, It's a rough start. Things were hard. And things were beautiful all at the same time. Like, I look back and I'm like, man, thank God for those challenges. I would not be who I am today without them. But also thank God for the amazing people in my life. Thank God for my grandmother that just didn't give up. She didn't know how. Didn't know how to give up, didn't know how to quit, didn't know how to stop. It's an amazing person. Very thankful. So yeah, man, my dyslexic life. You guys, if you like these stories, if you enjoy this, please subscribe. Do this. Let's get involved. Let's talk about these things. Leave a comment, leave a question, whatever it is. But yeah, my dyslexic life. Subscribe. Let's do this. I want to hear from you, and just want to keep this going. Hopefully it'll help someone, right? If it helps one person, it's worth it. So let me know.